founded called the North Metro Tea Party Patriots. That was many years ago, many years ago. We're here to educate, motivate, and activate as part of the Tea Party movement to stand against an out-of-control federal government of unconstitutional spending and taxation. We are an affiliate of the National Tea Party Patriots organization, which is a trademark name. The organization defined who we are and what we could do to reclaim our country that our founders envisioned. Its mission statement has always been to secure public policy in line with Tea Party Patriots' three core principles. Number one is the limited constitutional government, so we may have personal freedom. Two was free market economics, so we have economic freedom and prosperity and growth. And three is financial responsibility, so we have a debt-free future. These principles are our guide for who and what to vote for, and it's a guide for our policymakers at all levels to secure liberty-based policy. They are founding principles so everyone is able to pursue the American dream and one's own prosperity and happiness. Please pick up a brochure on your way out, share it with a friend. When you're in an elevator and you're stuck for a few seconds, don't be shy. When they ask, what do you do? Tell them. And be proud, be confident of it. I want to introduce some of the people who make our monthly meetings happen here tonight. We want to thank Steve, the general manager of Willie McCoy's. They welcome us here every month. We have Kim, our banquet manager back there. Wave, Kim. Thank you. You do a lovely job setting up the room. And we have servers tonight, Elizabeth, Kylie, Stevie, Kayla, and Monica. Let's give them a applause. They treat us well here, so please come back on your own time and support them. Travis Ekbaum, please stand. You do such a wonderful job with these flags and the decor. He puts these flags up. He comes earlier in the day and sets these up. Aren't they fabulous? And a couple ladies I talked about last month who were not able to be here because of other reasons. I want to say, Emily Hardigan, where are you? Stand up. Girl, we're glad you're back. And our own Nancy Powell. Stand up, Nancy. She's back. All right. Thank you. I'm going to introduce a couple people very quickly here. They came in, wanted to know if they could have a few seconds to talk. And I said definitely. So first of all, I want to introduce Tom Weiler, who has declared that he's running for CD3. So let's give Tom a nice hand.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me? It's a pleasure to be here. It really is. I grew up in Eden Prairie, right down the road. Graduated in '96 and went off to Notre Dame on a ROTC scholarship and immediately joined the Navy after that. And I was a submarine officer for the last 20 years. All things equal to me right now, I'd be driving a submarine across the South China Sea right now, doing God's work. But I received a curveball about 4 years ago, got diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's disease. So after dealing with that on a personal level, I started working on it on a professional level and put in a couple waivers to get back to a submarine. To start my career again in the submarine force, I was just queued up and screened for command of a submarine. So I was heading that route. But I could not get the waiver passed, so I did one more deployment on the USS Eisenhower, an aircraft carrier, and that completed my 20 years of service. And as I debated getting out of the military, I knew I loved this country and wanted to continue to serve. And I looked back at my home district, the Minnesota 3rd District, and when I left it was Jim Ramstad and Eric Paulson, and I looked back at Congressman Dean Phillips, and I knew Minnesotans could do better than that, and so I decided to come back home and run for Congress. I've been extremely blessed in my military career to have a lot of experiences, both driving submarines and on high-level staffs where I think I've gained real-world experience and leadership qualities that'll make me an effective congressman. And just as importantly, I have strong moral courage, and I believe based on my upbringing in this community that I can serve and be an effective congressman, an effective leader for the conservative qualities. And the three big points that Mary pointed out here, the fundamental tenets I can't agree with more. The small government, individual liberty, and the American dream. I have a 4- and a 6-year-old. And that motivates me every morning to continue to serve this great nation and make sure we maintain our position as the greatest country this world's ever seen. So I appreciate you letting me have a few minutes tonight. I'll be around. Please introduce yourself. I'll introduce myself. And please join our team to turn the ship around. And let's take CD3 back. Thank you very much.
Senator Mark Horan. He's here. Thank you, Mark, for coming in.
We were talking to Mark earlier. You got to go to his house for his Christmas.
I want to introduce John Augustine, who used to be chair and is now a board member of the Legislative Evaluation Assembly of Minnesota. It's a mouthful, but we call it LEA. And he's just going to tell us about the table and some news.
Hello. Heard from me before if you've been here recently. I am also the chairman of the John Adams Debate Society. And for our December topic, we try to have a little extra fun. And the resolution is going to be resolved. Yes, Virginia, there is a supply chain. December 15th at the Lowe's. And go to JohnAdamSociety.org to find out about that. The 2021 LEA report will be at lea-mn.org probably tomorrow. You have printed copies fresh off the press here tonight. We're going to have this half table back here. If anyone wants to sign up as members or renew memberships, they can get a fresh copy of the 2021 report, and Mary's going to let us get a little more detailed presentation on it next month. So look forward to doing that. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Yeah, very interesting when the honor these on this year. Very interesting. You do great work. This has been, you guys were first formed in 1972, and a lot of people don't realize how long lasting you've been. It's a good service. Good. Well, we're going to formally start our meeting tonight, and I want to do that by having Dwight McCullough lead us in prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Dwight is a longtime activist and patriot. He's from Senate District 31. He served in the National Guard. He is a fair tax expert. And we support the fair tax, don't we, Dwight?
Yes, we do. Can you hear me all right? Okay. Let's all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you would remain standing, I would just like to read a few verses of Scripture. This is Psalm 46, King James for us old guys. I won't read the whole thing. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the dwelling thereof. There is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathen raged. The kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, and the earth melted. If you would bow your heads with me. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this nation. We thank you for this group that meets on a regular basis, that works hard to bring back freedom and liberty to this area and to this country. Lord, we just pray that you would help us to look to you for strength and direction, that we would put our trust in you, and that you would tear down those who would try to destroy what we have. We just ask this in the name of Jesus. And all God's children said, Amen.
Thanks, Dwight. That was great. Typical. You want to come up and do the National Tea Party Patriots update? We always enjoy it when Donna comes and shares her ideas. Not necessarily Tea Party Patriots, but we tease each other. Let's welcome Donna.
table, you got this lilac sheet, and it's got kind of a summary of what I'm speaking about, and in the back, Mary gave me information source suggestions, and there's everything in there. I mean, you know, I added one in the back that she forgot about Rick Weibel's Midwest Swamp Watch. I've heard him, and I thought it very interesting. Okay. No matter what I do, these things seem to. My name is Donna Thibodeau, and this is called Unfiltered Donna Thibodeau, and tonight's talk is talking about It's a Trap. The one action item for the week from the National is to call both of our senators and tell them to vote no on the Build Back Better Act, also known as the Reconciliation Act, or as we call it, the Build Back Socialist Act. And I know that with our two Democratic senators, you don't have much of a chance of getting them to turn around and vote no, but it does let them know that we're watching them. So please call, and I have their numbers on the back of that purple or a lilac sheet. What the Democrats are building is a socialist America, which more and more things are free. But in that bill, there's something for everyone to hate. It will make inflation worse. The cost of gas, food, clothing, housing, medical care is going up, but our buying power is going down because of the inflation. The bill will increase spending by $1 trillion, but it becomes, over time, it becomes $398 trillion over 10 years. The Congressional Budget Office says spending $1.7 trillion will end up to be $3.98 trillion over 10 years, or $398 trillion. The Congressional Budget Office says it would add $750 billion to our deficit over 5 years. Okay. How are we going to pay for that money? Well, with the IRS, I guess it grows on trees. They just print it. But you and I can't do that if we want to stay out of jail. The money is sold as free, but it isn't really. It's going to have a price tag you don't want. You won't like it. And it's in the form of taxation. First of all, the government is going to hire 80,000 new IRS agents to snoop into just about everybody's checkbooks. They want to federalize everybody's bank account. So essentially what they want to do is instead of having your own bank, it will go through the federal government. Any money you make, in and out. Medicare premiums in 2022, less than a month, are going to rise 14.5%. Social Security will rise by 5.7%. Now, if you can do a little bit of math, that means that we are at a negative of 8.8% loss for anybody on Social Security. It will consume the whole yearly cost of living increase in Social Security and then some more. The Dems are attempting to make us more dependent on the federal government. Cradle to grave control. That's what they want. That's really what they're aiming for. Currently, we are getting bombarded with advertisements to call Medicare to see what we can get for free. We will be able to get zero premiums, hearing aids, dental care, etc. And it's a ruse because what they're trying to do is get you hooked on Medicare rather than your private insurance that you have right now. We happen to have Humana, and we do have some of that, hearing aids and stuff in it, but we've not used it. Medicare is going to cut back on services, which was Obamacare. What they want to do is reinstitute Obamacare, calling it Biden care or whatever. Okay, that's all in the bill. And by the way, if I'm conflating different bills passing through, it's because there are so many, but they're going in the same direction. The bill will add millions of illegal immigrants in 10 years, and the Dems will speed up the process to citizenship so these illegal immigrants can legally vote Democratic. If that happens, if this bill passes, Republicans will have zero chance of winning an election again. Also in the bill is free preschool for 3 and 4-year-old children. 3? It always used to be 4. I'm waiting for the day when they come to the hospital and say, we'll take your kid. Goodbye. And it could happen. And this preschool for the free payment, it forces the LGBTQ activist curriculum on faith groups as well. And I read an article about that where it was a Jewish group, and they were saying, well, then we're going to be forced to choose that or choose to learn about our religion and against that particular viewpoint on sex. And then, of course, in the bill is more Green New Deal. And it's shutting down more pipelines like they did the Keystone. They want to shut down Line 5 in Michigan. They've shut down Line 3 in Minnesota several times, and at this point, I don't know if it's up and running or not. But there's others they're eyeing on the East Coast. If they do that, they literally can freeze us to death because many people can't afford to pay triple and quadruple the price for gas. Okay, my last part of this thing is learning from the 2020 election. I read an article in Breitbart by Charles Hurt entitled "Republican Establishment Playing to Lose, Failing to Learn from the Past." Now that's one of Trump's big things. We have to learn from the past so we don't repeat the mistakes. Hurt's point is that 19 Republicans in the Senate, I think, voted for this bill, including Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. In the House, 13 Republicans defected and voted for it, giving Biden a huge win. How come, this is my question, how come Republicans don't have a vivid alternative vision for the United States? Why don't we have something that's magnetic and attracts people? Republicans are not, the answer is, Republicans are not playing to win. They're not stepping out and saying, this is my plan. They are simply playing not to lose. Don't say anything, don't do anything, make all their right statements. With no unifying vision, this equals they win and we lose. Another Breitbart article by John Nolte titled "Donald Trump Leads Joe Biden in Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Wisconsin." Well, this is again my opinion. Trump needs to look at himself, and I think he could use a little polish around the edges. Nolte describes Trump as a great president. He's charismatic, charming, funny, smart, courageous, and brimming with good ideas. But sometimes he puts his foot in his mouth. He says too much, or he eggs on a verbal fight, causing all kinds of uproar, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, he's up on double digits when it comes to issues like the economy, but he's only ahead 3 points in Georgia. Why the disparity? You answer that. I don't know. Anyway, that's all, folks. So have a Merry Christmas and remember that Jesus is the reason for the season. Sorry,
Thank you, Donna.
we're at 9 minutes instead of 7.
That's why I tease Donna, because I always say, how much do you need? 2 minutes? She says 5. As you can see, she had a timer on and it went 9. It was good information. Thank you, Donna. You put a lot of work into this for us every month. Thank you. Kim Crockett has been a guest speaker here before. Many of you remember her, and I'm going to have her come up and say a few more words to us. Hi, Kim.
Thank you, Mary. I will keep this brief because I see my friend James Dickey standing off to the side. I've been before you a number of times to talk about a variety of important issues. I don't disagree with anything I've heard from Tom tonight. It's interesting how many men from the military are rising to defend us, especially in CD3 where I live. And they're trying to defend us against the terrible ideas that Donna just outlined. But I don't want you to be discouraged because people are stepping up to fight, and I include myself in that and wanted to let you know tonight that I'm running for Secretary of State. We're old friends, so I'll share with you that I have a bookshelf at home filled with the faces of the founders, Abigail and John Adams, the Jeffersons, and so on and so forth. And I have a little trick where I turn the book so you see their face, so it kind of looks like a portrait gallery of my friends and my family and yours. You know, I've been debating this for some time, and Mary knows that, whether I should make this run in 2022. It's a special year. So I don't want you to get discouraged. I want you to get in the mood to fight and to join me in that fight. Some of you I will see on Saturday, December 11th at State Central. I'll be there with a table and stickers that you can put on your chest for me and fight for me, protect me. And just don't get discouraged. There's a lot going on. It's a strange time. But all I know how to do is fight. When I look at that wall, I think about the sacrifice that all those people made. John and Abigail loved each other dearly. They were best friends. And they spent years apart so that we could enjoy the prosperity and the freedom that we have in America. So I'll see some of you at State Central on December 11th, and my website will be up. The announcement will be up next week, and I hope you can join me in the fight for election integrity here in Minnesota.
You know, less than a year ago, a lot of us were saying, I just wonder who's going to run for office. Are we going to get anybody for governor? Are we going to get anybody for Secretary of State or Attorney General? And my goodness, look at the field that we have. The fight is in us. I don't know what happened after last year, but there's something anew. We might be a little more calm going forward, but the fight and the determination and the commitment is there. We're seeing it all over. I wanted to end 2021 at our meetings on an upbeat and positive note. There are victories in our fight for liberty. Sometimes we just don't hear about them. We don't know about the individuals and the organizations who are doing so much on our behalf. There are many working hard for us. We've had some of them speak to us at this year's events, including Karen Grace, Citizens Council Around Freedom. We had Rob Dorr here from the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, many more. Last month we had former Iowa U.S. Congressman Steve King. That was a phenomenal meeting, and he is still continuing to fight, and he's still really good friends with Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann. In fact, she called in last month to introduce Steve. So you never know all the little surprises we have at these meeting events. Tonight we're especially privileged to have James Dickey, who is the Senior Trial Counsel, the Upper Midwest Law Center here. Do you want to come up and get yourself set up? Go ahead, I'll keep talking. He's going to share their many fights and lawsuits. The center is a center-right nonprofit public interest law firm founded in 2019 by attorney Doug Seaton. Many of us know Doug from being out and about, just a terrific guy. The center fights to limit governmental special interests and public union overreach and uses the rule of law to protect citizen liberties. Their lawyers work without charge to clients, and legal recoveries are repurposed to fund additional litigation. And I just ran out of things to say, James. But we're so glad to have him here again. He is the Upper Midwest Law Center Senior Trial Counsel. And have any of you heard him speak before?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, he's fabulous. Yeah, just wonderful. You're going to be amazed.
Amazed once I actually get this set up.
And while he's setting up, I'm going to tell you about next month's meeting, which is January 6th. Again, it's always the first Thursday of every month except July. So Thursday, January 6th, we will have the state party chair, David Ham, here. By then, we will know who the newly elected deputy chair is, because that election's coming up at State Central on December 11th. How many of you are delegates to that? Yeah, alternates, yeah. So they'll be here. Plus, we have Minnesota's independent news source, Alpha News, coming. And that is both Anthony Counsel, who's the editor-in-chief, and Cal Hooten, the managing editor. He's known for many of the wonderful interviews that have gone out, not only for First Tuesday, but for Alpha News. So put that on your calendar, and let's give a warm welcome to James. Yeah.
Can you all hear me with this? Great. If I get too loud or something like that, just tell me to simmer down and I will.
All right, get loud.
Really loud? Well, thank you all so much for having me here. I'm really just grateful to be here with the Liberty Tea Party Patriots. Glad to be able to talk to you about the Upper Midwest Law Center and what we are doing on your behalf. First, before I get going here, we just had our Thanksgiving holiday. And I just want to say I am so thankful for a group of people like you who are patriots, who love this country. I'm so thankful for those like Tom Weiland, who's just up here, who have served this country honorably and put themselves on the line for our freedoms in a way much greater than anything I could ever do. So I just want to ask for a round of applause for our veterans and those who have served our country. Really appreciate all your service. So I am James Dickey. I'm the Senior Trial Counsel for the Upper Midwest Law Center, as Mary mentioned. And I'm going to talk to you about how we fight in our way for liberty and the rule of law. So we go to court, we fight, and we win for you. Our mission is to bring important legal cases against abuses of power by the government and other powerful parties who are depriving Minnesotans of their liberty and ignoring the rule of law. So far, I'll give you a couple examples of some major victories that we've had. We got a court order forcing the city of Minneapolis to hire more police. That was a huge win for us. It was a huge blow to the defund the police movement. Yes. We defeated Governor Walz in court, which made him agree in writing to stop discriminating against Minnesota's churches and other houses of worship based on COVID-19. And we defeated Attorney General Ellison in the Court of Appeals in our effort to uncover documents that he has been hiding about how he is renting out the Attorney General's office to climate change activists. Now, how do we do this? First of all, I'll tell you, as Mary said, we don't charge our clients a single penny for anything that we do. We cover all the costs of litigation, we cover all the attorney's fees and everything. We are 100% funded by donors who support our mission to fight for the rule of law and liberty in Minnesota. And so if you support us, we do need your donations. We're a fully tax-exempt 501c3 organization, and all donations that are made to us are tax-deductible and confidential. As a 501c3, we are nonpartisan. We do not take any direct or indirect support of candidates. So you won't hear me talking about the merits of any particular candidates here tonight, because we can't do that legally. I have my own personal opinions about things, but our organization does not make any kind of endorsements of any kind. So this setup allows us to take the cases that are the most important cases that we possibly can on behalf of the people of Minnesota and the Upper Midwest. Some examples of our cases are the Span versus Minneapolis City Council case. I just mentioned that, where we got an order against the defunding of the Minneapolis police. Northland Baptist Church versus Walls is our lawsuit where Governor Walls had to settle with us to stop discriminating against churches because of COVID. Energy Policy Advocates versus Ellison is our case related to the we're seeking documents related to the renting out of the Attorney General's office to special interests. Snell versus Walls is our case fighting Tim Walls' mask order. We are still going on that, and I'll tell you more about that soon. O'Neill versus Showalter, I should say O'Neill and Coran versus Showalter, is our case about stopping illegal state employee pay raises implemented by the Commissioner of Management and Budget, despite a Senate that made it clear they did not agree with the House Democrats. We bring multiple cases on behalf of employees in the post-Janus world, which means that when public sector unions like the Anoka Hennepin Education Minnesota Union and others like it are forcing people to stay in the union and pay dues, we bring lawsuits on their behalf to help get them out of this abusive arrangement. We have a lawsuit called Cajun versus Independent School District 194 in Lakeville. We are fighting critical race theory in schools and in government employment. And in this case, we are fighting specifically against the allowance of Black Lives Matter posters to be posted in the school, but the discrimination against other viewpoints of the same type. We also are helping several people right now with COVID-19 vaccine mandate discrimination against private companies, which are not honoring the rights that every individual has under Title VII due to their religious objections to the vaccine. So I'm going to highlight a few of these cases here, and then and I'll open up for questions afterward. But I'm going to go right into Span versus the Minneapolis City Council, the Minneapolis police case. In August of 2020, on behalf of 8 residents of Minneapolis' North Side, which has been just ravaged with crime in the last 2 years, we sued the Minneapolis City Council and Mayor Jacob Fry for allowing the Minneapolis police force to dwindle. The Minneapolis City Charter requires that the city have at least 731 officers measured against the 2020 census population. The number of officers actually enforcing the laws in Minneapolis right now, a city of almost 450,000 people, is well below 650 total. And so when we sued this out, we got some very good press. This is back when people were, I think, giving us press because they didn't know who we were. But we got Star Tribune, NPR, Fox 9, CBS 4 coverage, you name it, we got it. The city, of course, moved to dismiss our case. And in their argument, they actually had the gumption to claim that our clients essentially had to take a bullet in order to be able to bring a lawsuit to force Minneapolis to hire more officers. And I pointed out to the judge, Judge Jamie Anderson, that this is just inappropriate. This idea that you have to be so grievously harmed in order to bring a lawsuit just to force the city to do its job is absurd. And so we showed the client, we actually showed the court, though, that one of our clients, in fact, unfortunately, had a bullet shot into the siding of their home, 4 inches below their daughter's bedroom window. And he had the bullet with him to show it. And so we got some news coverage about this case, of course, and I don't think the audio is going to play, but this is an example of, I think this is actually on CBS 4 News. Reg Chapman was covering it, and it talks about all of our clients and our lawsuit that's going on. We won that motion. Judge Jamie Anderson refused to allow the city to get a dismissal of the case, so we won that motion, which allowed us to go forward and actually do discovery into what exactly the city of Minneapolis was doing, and what was causing the decline in the police, and whether or not they were in compliance with the charter or not. So I actually got a chance to take the deposition of Mayor Jacob Fry and Council President Lisa Bender, which means, in layman's terms, that I got them to sit down across from me via Zoom, of course, and answer my questions under oath for 2 hours each. So I could have taken longer, but I just thought, I should be nice to them, right? Let them off. No, I ran out of questions, really. And so in the depositions, Mayor Fry admitted, and I want to remind you, our clients are 8 residents of the north side of Minneapolis. There are 5 black and 3 white residents of the north side. Their politics, their beliefs, their ideas are not the point. The point is what the people of Minneapolis, and specifically North Minneapolis, need is protection from the criminal element, and they are not getting it. And so Mayor Fry actually, in speeches that he has made and in his deposition, admitted that the Minneapolis crime wave hurts the most diverse neighborhoods the most. The Minneapolis Police Department and the mayor's office have a document where they talk about what's called a racial equity impact analysis. And they actually admit in this document that if there's an increase in police officers, it's going to help the north side of Minneapolis the most. And that's, of course, as we all know, why the north side of Minneapolis came out against the police amendment on the ballot. So Mayor Fry admitted this. The court then agreed with us. The court cited the fact that Mayor Fry himself had admitted that the decline in police was hurting our clients, so therefore we do have a reason to sue over it. And the court granted what's called a writ of mandamus. And in that writ of mandamus, the court said that the city of Minneapolis, the city council, and the mayor had to take any and all necessary action immediately to ensure that they are in compliance with the charter, which requires, as I said before, 731 sworn officers in the Minneapolis Police Department. As I said again, right now, based on the last statistics that I have seen from the Police Officers Federation of Minneapolis, the police union, they were in mid-October, they were at 651 on payroll, and then dozens of those are still on long-term disability leave because of PTSD. So there's actually far fewer than that actually protecting the people of Minneapolis. So the court said, you have to be proactive, you can't wait until the 2020 census comes out, having 2010 numbers, you have to keep hiring police officers so that you can stay up with what the law requires. And this, of course, was big news, and this was a huge blow to the defund the police movement that's going on in many cities across the country. It sends a message that citizens, regular citizens, can stand up against bad policy and do something where the law provides for it. So thankfully, in the case of Minneapolis, in 1960 and 1961, it was the people of Minneapolis who were going through a crime wave who put that police minimum in place. And because they had the foresight to do that in 1961, the people of Minneapolis today have hope that their city can return from being what looks like a war zone into some place that people love and love to be.
That's going to take a lot of work.
And our hope is that this victory against the city of Minneapolis will lead to added safety for its residents. Some of our clients are right here, as you can see. I know the picture's really small, especially from you far away. These are just some example of our clients who were interviewed after this big win. This is Don Samuels, who's a former Minneapolis City Council member, who's one of our clients, and a champion for good policing in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. And so now that the people of Minneapolis have spoken and they have rejected the defund the police amendment that was on the ballot this November, our case will now decide what the Minneapolis Charter means. And what I mean by it will decide is that on December 15th, I have to go in front of the Court of Appeals to defend the district court's decision ordering the writ of mandamus against the city because the city decided to appeal the decision instead of just taking the hint and hiring more officers. So we are currently going in, we fully briefed it, we're going to the Court of Appeals on December 15th, and I'll be arguing in front of the Minnesota Court of Appeals in front of a 3-judge panel. We think that common sense is going to prevail here, that the court is going to recognize that the district court was right, the charter does require this, and we think that the Minneapolis Police Department is going to have at least more staffing going forward. And again, as I said, but as of mid-October, they're way behind. They claimed in their last brief that they're doing everything they can to hire more officers, and they actually are trying to hire 270 officers over the next 2 years. But that's not enough when you're losing officers at a record clip. It's just not enough. So they can do more. In 1961, when the charter amendment passed, they did more. They offered more money, more wages. There were officers begging Minneapolis from Duluth, begging Minneapolis to be able to come work in Minneapolis for the pay raise that they were experiencing. And as we told the court, we're not telling the city council or mayor how to hire more police. We're just telling them that they have to do it. And how they get to that conclusion is up to them. And, frankly, I can't imagine that if there were large enough bonuses or incentives or maybe support from the city council that they wouldn't get more police officers there. I'm going to also now talk about Northland Baptist Church versus Walls. We sued this out last May. We were the first law firm in the state of Minnesota to file a lawsuit against Somer Wells in federal court related to the COVID-19 shutdown orders that devastated our small businesses and shut down our churches. The plaintiffs in the case included 2 churches and 3 small businesses, and then of course Attorney General Ellison moved to dismiss our case. He argued that Governor Walz has the authority to shut down churches, a gift store, a gift card store, a hair salon, and an indoor mini golf course, but keep Target, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and all these other stores open, even though they all spread COVID the exact same way. People go in there, and they're at a certain capacity, and they're close to each other, and they spread the virus. This is common sense. We won the only court victory against Governor Walz's shutdown orders when Judge Wilhelmina Wright, who is an Obama appointee, denied the motion to dismiss. So we won that on behalf of the churches. And so Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison essentially admitted defeat, because after that decision came down, they came to us and sought a settlement. We decided, you know what? We should settle this. We should get an agreement that makes it so that Governor Walz can't do this again legally. And so they have now, in the settlement agreement that they signed with our clients, agreed that they can never discriminate against Minnesota's churches and other houses of worship again in favor of their big business friends like Target. Now, the court did dismiss our business clients' cases, and the court claimed that essentially that even though we made an equal protection claim, which seems pretty obvious to me, the court found a distinction between our business clients and Target and other places like that. But we have appealed that. We are in the federal Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, and we are not going to stop until we get to the Supreme Court and there's no more to go. I'm going to show you here. You can't really see it again if you're too far out there because it's a little bit of a small print. But this is an actual copy of the settlement agreements, just so I can show you like the proof in the pudding here. And it says here in the highlighted text out here, but I'll just read it out for those who can't see it. The state defendants agree that in any future emergency executive order issued by Governor Tim Walz, all houses of worship or places of gathering for religious exercise in Minnesota shall receive the same treatment or less restrictive treatment as the least restricted secular business regulated by the order. So, if Target is open, your churches will be open. So this is important because while there are many battles that we can't fight as lawyers that are political battles, what this means is that there is a baseline set treatment that has to be applied to churches. And so this is a huge victory for us. And we got some coverage as well. It is interesting that the church settlement was covered by places like Reuters and some news organizations in Rochester. But the Star Tribune was not quite as interested in it.
I wonder why.
What can I say? And so again, I want to clarify one thing. The reason we sued on behalf of businesses was not just because of a lack of equal treatment. We also claimed that businesses who were shut down and not able to operate, not even able to take advantage of the premises that they have a lease agreement for. They can't even go on their property for the purpose that they actually have the lease. We sued the governor and said, you've taken our client's property, and so you have to pay for it. And so we are in the 8th Circuit right now going forward on these claims which are called takings claims, and we are seeking compensation from the state because of those shutdowns. And now I don't know how that's going to turn out or wind up, but we think it's an important issue to press because governors of this state, and there should be a precedent for governors of any state, shouldn't be able to shut down legitimate businesses like that based on picking winners and losers and not based on any real differences between them. Thanks. And so the next case I'm going to talk about is Energy Policy Advocates versus Ellison. Today I found out that this case is now going to be set for oral argument before the Minnesota Supreme Court on January 5th. So I will be arguing this in front of the 7 justices of the Minnesota Supreme Court on January 5th. But fundamentally what this case is about, and the question that I would ask diagnostically here, is what would you say if you found out that the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota was allowing an environmental special interest group in New York to pay for climate warrior lawyers to be planted in the office of the Attorney General to bring lawsuits against energy companies that the environmental group supports? I think you probably agree with me that that is illegal. And there's a statute on point. And in fact, it's a very interesting situation, and I am wondering if there are going to be any oversight hearings related to this at some point. But Minnesota Statutes 43A.38 is a code of ethics for employees in the executive branch, which includes the Attorney General's office. Subdivision 2 of that statute says this, and it's highlighted here, and I'll read it out because it is very small. It says, acceptance of gifts or favors. Employees in the executive branch in the course of or in relation to their official duties, being a lawyer for the Attorney General, shall not directly or indirectly receive compensation from any source except the state. Now, why do I think this is a problem that these lawyers are in this office? Because Keith Ellison is doing exactly that. He is allowing an outside group to pay the entire salary of these attorneys. And why am I mentioning Keith Ellison? I know he's a political candidate. I'm not making any statements about his candidacy for Attorney General next time or anything like that, to be clear. All I'm saying is what he is doing is the subject of the document search that our clients have, which I'm going to get into in a second. So 2 of Ellison's lawyers, Pete Serto and Lee Curry, at least, as far as I know, are paid for by the New York University School of Law's Environmental Impact Center, which is funded by a Michael Bloomberg-funded foundation. And so Attorney General Ellison has rented out the powers of the Attorney General's office in Minnesota to outside special interests. And maybe the worst part of this to me is that this is being done right in front of all of us. Okay? This on the left here, again, very small, I'm sorry. This is a complaint from State of Minnesota versus American Petroleum Institute, ExxonMobil Corporation, Koch Industries, and Flint Hills Resources. Signing that complaint is Liz Kramer, the Solicitor General, but listed underneath her are Lee Curry and Pete Serto, the 2 attorneys who are paid for by the Bloomberg-funded NYU Law School Foundation. And of course, the Star Tribune picked up that lawsuit. Later on, there was an op-ed written by a person who pointed out the illegality of what's going on in the Attorney General's office in the Star Tribune. And so Keith Ellison published a counterpoint in the Star Tribune. And he admitted that this is going on. This is not just some vast right-wing conspiracy. This is Keith Ellison's own words. I've successfully sought outside help at no cost to taxpayers, what a deal, including 2 attorneys funded by NYU. He admits to it. It's right there. Of course, he admits to all this way after our lawsuit over the document started, right? And with their help, I filed a consumer protection lawsuit against ExxonMobil, Koch Industries, and the American Petroleum Institute for misleading Minnesotans about the real causes of climate change. But he does tell one thing that I would say it's a lie in this op-ed that we just saw. He says, our agreements with NYU are public documents that we've happily disclosed many times. How do I know this is a lie? Our clients had to sue to get those documents. How happy are you to give up documents you've been sued over? So in 2019 and 2020, Upper Midwest Law Center filed 2 lawsuits on behalf of Energy Policy Advocates, our client, against Attorney General Ellison. Energy Policy Advocates is a nonprofit group that seeks to uncover big climate's abuse of government power to achieve climate change goals. And Ellison has simply blocked their records requests, seeking information related to the Bloomberg connection. And I'll tell you, if you look at the actual document they sent back saying we're not going to give you anything, it's like basically 1 page saying we have all these protections from providing this and we're not going to do it. Not specifically like this document is bad or this document is bad, just we're not going to do it. So we went ahead and sued him. We sued him, like I said, twice. And we sued specifically because we just wanted to get the documents. And if Keith Ellison were really as transparent as he claims, then why are we in the Minnesota Supreme Court right now still fighting over this? He is still fighting in court against us with a claim that virtually any document that the Attorney General's office touches in Minnesota is privileged and not subject to public access by any of us. His definition, his interpretation of Minnesota Statute 13.65 would make it so that only individuals, if any individuals are actually listed in the document, could ever get access to a document held by the Attorney General's office as part of an investigation. That is absurd. The Court of Appeals thankfully rejected that position and gave us another big victory in June 2021 and said that all of the AG's policy documents and things like that are public data unless they are specifically about an individual and therefore the individual gets different protections, right? But again, he wants more than that, so that's why we're in the Minnesota Supreme Court right now. And this is just a picture of the first page of that decision, Judge Matt Johnson holding for our clients and giving us a victory. We also do look forward, you might be wondering in your head, well, if it's so illegal for Ellison to have these lawyers paid for by outside special interests, why haven't you sued over it yet? And I'd say we look forward to likely bringing that lawsuit. We're working on it. As you'll recognize as I go through all these different cases, we have a lot going on, but we are getting to that. I'll talk now about Snell versus Walls. Now, this is our case against Executive Order 20-81, which you think, well, that's been rescinded since May now. Well, this is our case against Executive Order 20-81, the mask mandate issued by Governor Tim Walz in July of 2020. So a month after that, in August, we filed a lawsuit on behalf of 15 Minnesotans, businesses, and churches to stop the mask mandate. And it's our view is that the mask mandate violates the separation of powers written into Minnesota's Constitution. You talk about the Liberty Tea Party Patriots caring deeply about limited constitutional government. That is what this lawsuit at its heart is all about. It's our view that the governor cannot make the laws, he only can enforce them. Okay? The legislature makes the laws. The governor enforces the laws. But the mask mandate acts like a law. It is made out of whole cloth. It is requiring all Minnesotans in any indoor public space to put on something on their face because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Not only does it act like a law, it contradicts another law that's already on the books. Minnesota Statute 609.735 makes it a crime to wear a mask in public. The only reason you can wear a mask in public is if you're trick-or-treating, if it's cold outside, if you have actual medical diagnosis from a doctor that says you can wear it. That's the only way you can wear it. The Ramsey County District Court in St. Paul, unfortunately, denied our motion for an injunction, which we sought, and dismissed our case. We filed an appeal on Monday, May 10th. 3 days later, after our appeal, and then after the CDC issued its mask announcement, Governor Walz dropped the mandate except as related to schools. Coincidence? You decide. Interestingly, we actually offered, and I've said this in public pleadings, we've actually offered to dismiss our case. All Governor Walz has to do is disagree he won't reimpose a mask mandate. He refuses to agree to that. And now he's claiming that we don't have a case anymore because it's been rescinded. And then I told the Court of Appeals, well, if that's the case, why doesn't he just agree? We'll just end this right now. There's no point in being in front of the court. The coincidence? Yeah, you decide. We had a hearing on October 13th in the Court of Appeals, and we're actually expecting to, I wrote here that we'll get a decision in January because I was expecting it in January. The court is issuing its opinion on Monday. So we will know on Monday, December 6th, whether or not the Court of Appeals is going to say, Governor Walz, you can't do that again. And we are going to continue this appeal. If we lose in this decision, we are going to go to the Minnesota Supreme Court, and we're going to seek further review. And our hope then, if we do lose, is that the Supreme Court would then take up the case. But we are going to go all the way as far as we possibly can to try to uphold the principle of the Minnesota Constitution in Article 3, Section 1, that the legislature makes the laws, the governor enforces the laws. It's that simple. I'm going to talk now about the case. The caption is O'Neill versus Showalter, but I would call it O'Neill and Curran versus Showalter, as Senator Curran is one of the plaintiffs in the case. In the middle of COVID-19, while 600,000 Minnesotans in the private sector were out of jobs and on unemployment, Minnesota's Commissioner of Management and Budget gave public employees a pay raise without the approval of the Senate. What happened was the House of Representatives passed a law that said, or ratified, as it's known, the collective bargaining agreements between the commissioner and between the state, the commissioner being its representative, and public sector unions in Minnesota. The Senate, because of Mark Curran's amendment, did not ratify those bills without condition. It put a condition making sure that if Minnesota got a surplus at some point, then let's talk about giving pay raises to people, but right now it's not responsible. The Commissioner of Management and Budget decided that because, in his view, the Senate could only give an up or down vote, that meant that, well, they said we ratify unless, or if something happens, That's good enough for us, so we're just going to implement the whole thing. Now, this is like Schoolhouse Rock type stuff. How does the entire legislature act in Minnesota? It passes a bill in one house, and it passes a bill in the other house, and then the governor signs it. I thought that was, pretty fundamental. And yet, the Commissioner of Management and Budget doesn't care about that. He only took whatever he could get to push this forward. And I also note, in 40 years of public sector union collective bargaining in Minnesota, every single Commissioner of Management and Budget before Myron Franz always got the bill passed by both houses and then had the governor sign it. Myron Franz in 2018 was the first commissioner to ever push a bill, a ratification of public sector collective bargaining agreements through without full ratification by both houses. And he did it again in 2020. So we filed a lawsuit. Again, Ramsey County District Court, we're talking about St. Paul here, dismissed our case. We appealed the case, and we have a hearing on next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. in the Court of Appeals. On my birthday. Thank you. Yes, it is. There's if you go to the Minnesota Court of Appeals website, there will be a place you can go to, and this is, I think, true for the Supreme Court as well. You can go and you can click a link that'll open up the Zoom hearings, and I think, now there's a capacity to these Zoom meetings and stuff, and I don't know what that is, but you can go and watch me tear them apart or get torn apart, one of the two. I'll also talk briefly here about our post-Janus union dues abuse cases. So Janus versus American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees was a landmark decision of the U.S. Supreme Court. And what it said was, if you are a public sector employee, you cannot be forced to pay an agency fee to a public sector union. They can't force you to pay 80% of the full dues just because you're in the collective bargaining unit, okay? Well, the unions don't want that. Of course, they don't like that. And even though our clients who are public employees who are employed by, whether they're in the teachers union, whether they're in AFSCME, whether they're in the SEIU, they're healthcare workers, they are employed by public entities, except for the healthcare workers, which is another story. But they're employed by public entities, and they now have the right to not pay any dues to a union whatsoever. They are still entitled to all the quote-unquote benefits, if there are any, to being a part of the collective bargaining unit of the union, and the union still has a duty to fairly represent them like they would any other employee. But the benefit of being the union's bargain here is that the union gets to be the collective bargaining representative, but they can't force non-consenting employees to subsidize their political behavior, because that's exactly what's really going on, is that the public sector unions take the dollars from these employees who've never consented to give them, and then they use them to go door knocking and phone banking to push partisan politics. And so and the benefits of being in a public union, like I said, are non-existent. You can get better private insurance policies on your own at the same or less cost than what the union has. And one thing I will say is, if you know anyone who is in a public sector union and does not want to be in a public sector union, I can help them get out of that. So please just feel free to send me any information you have on that. We're happy to help people as much as we can. So we brought about 6 lawsuits in federal court on behalf of public employees whose unions will say, okay, now we'll let you resign from the union, but we're going to keep taking your dues until your window, which is like a 10 or 15-day window once a year, comes up. And then, of course, you have to stand on your head in the corner and use certified mail and, only send it on Tuesday. I'm kidding, but there's a very limited window that the public sector unions give employees to actually get out, and if you don't comply with all their little restrictions and requirements, then they don't let you out, and they say you're in for another year. We've already settled 2 of these cases favorably. The other 4 are currently on appeal to the 8th Circuit. And without our support, without Upper Midwest Law Center, and frankly, I also have to give huge kudos to Center of the American Experiment and their employee freedom initiatives. Without our work, these employees would just be stuck just waiting for the government unions to stop taking their dues without their freely given consent, and we simply think that's wrong. We are also challenging critical race theory in schools and in government employment. Critical race theory is a big problem. Critical race theory and similar ideologies, they pitch people against each other based on the color of their skin or other characteristics that make them different. And critical race theory claims that white people are oppressors and non-white people are oppressed. It creates a hierarchy of privilege. It's entirely counter and opposite to Dr. King's message that men and women should be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. It is that simple. And so when governments or schools or other public employers impose critical race theory on employees and students, it can violate the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, and sometimes Title VI or Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. So in some instances that I'll give you, schools are forcing students to learn racist concepts and sometimes regurgitate those concepts as their own speech. There's an example in Nevada, which is not one of our cases, full disclosure, but where a biracial student was forced to identify himself as either an oppressor or an oppressed based on the color of his skin. And because he refused to do it, they gave him an F in the class. Well, that practice stopped after a federal lawsuit was filed. But it's important to note that sometimes you have to go to court for these kinds of things. That's compelled speech in that instance. It's unconstitutional under the First Amendment. So we have now brought 4 claims on behalf of government employees in the Equal Employment and Opportunity Commission, the EEOC, on behalf of these employees, and we're investigating and we're holding school districts who are promoting CRT responsible for their constituents. So this is just an example of a copy of a letter that we sent to the Lakeville School District, calling out these ideas and saying this is wrong, because what the Lakeville School District did, and this is our Cajun versus ISD 194 case, is they actually allowed for students and teachers to put Black Lives Matter posters up around school. But they also said, after our clients asked, that you can't put up anything that says all lives matter or blue lives matter. So they only have room for one viewpoint, which is viewpoint discrimination of the First Amendment. And so we sued them. And we have a hearing coming up on December 21st in federal district court against the Lakeville School District. We're also involved, as you may have heard, in a number of data requests for concerned parents across the state. I wrote an editorial that was published just this Monday, or I guess it was Tuesday, in the Star Tribune, saying the public schools must respect the public's right to know. I got copies of it on the front table. If you want to grab one, you can. And what our clients in this particular case in Owatonna School District simply want to do is they just want to know what their kids are being taught. Because the school districts and the administrators and the superintendents are just saying, well, we're not teaching CRT, but they can't even really define it. The superintendents and school districts are claiming it's not taught, but when we request the documents that relate to CRT, so we request documents related to the keywords that say anti-racism, critical race theory, Ibram Kendi, whiteness, white fragility, systemic racism, the kind of language you would expect from someone who is imposing CRT on kids. They're telling us we have 1 million documents. Well, if you have 1 million documents, how is it that you're not teaching this stuff, or at least having these concepts thrown around the classroom and in your hallways? And so our clients have been making great effort to go through these documents, despite the school boards obfuscating, manipulating, and frankly, telling the newspapers recently flat-out untruths about what we're doing. Lastly, I'll mention that we have cases where we are challenging, we're not challenging outright vaccine mandates, but we are challenging failures of private businesses to afford exemptions for people who have sincere religious beliefs that tell them, hey, I shouldn't do this. And so we wish we could take every case on these, but so far we've been focused on religious discrimination cases. And the reality is that large employers, any employer over 15 people, must recognize sincere religious objections to vaccine mandates. But instead what they're doing is they're, by and large, either discriminating between different religions, or they're actually forcing people to jump through hoops that they never should have to jump through. And so, again, we can't take every case, but we certainly are trying to fight as many as we can. We have a bunch more cases. We've got a case where we're representing Nancy Powell, who's here tonight, and John Huizenga and Jim Benson against the Anoka Hennepin Education Minnesota because they are using taxpayer dollars to illegally subsidize political behavior such as door knocking and via a union business leave provision. We are challenging, and we are helping CAE challenge the Xcel Energy Integrated Resource Plan, where they're trying to shut down now the Becker coal plant, and they're trying to shut down coal plants 10 years early, which is going to cost you, if you're an Xcel Energy customer, $1,400 a year. Oh yeah. Yeah, and this year alone, you can already see your fuel prices going up. We're also challenging the Minnesota Clean Cars rule. We have already issued comments related to that, and we expect to be bringing a lawsuit, and I'm telling you right now, this is kind of breaking news. We do expect at some point in the near future to have a lawsuit against the Clean Car rule, because we think that it is a violation of these car dealers' rights. And we also have, we sued an eco-terrorist who committed vandalism on the Line 2 pipeline, and we obtained a judgment of over $100,000 for a logging company against him. Now, will we ever collect that? I don't know yet, but we're sure trying, because we are going to move to compel him to tell us where his money is coming from in the near future. So, that's everything I've got. Your pay suggestions and donations are welcome. We're working hard on a lot of fronts, all these cases. I'm the senior trial counsel. I'm not doing everything, but I'm doing a lot. We want to hire more lawyers. We need your help to do that. So thank you so much for having me, and really appreciate you guys. Okay, so I have a little bit of time for questions if anyone wants to come up and ask a question.
We'd love it if you could come up here. Would you mind doing that?
I was just hoping that we could get one of your cards and also your slide deck.
Sure.
Because I think people will want to see your
right.
It's hard for them to see it.
I can send a PDF copy to Mary, and then she can send it out to anyone who wants it. And I have cards up over at the front table as well. We also have our fall update as of October 2021 with some of our exciting updates, which I've told you a lot about already. And like I said, I have copies of my op-ed also at the front table. So feel free to grab whatever copy you want of that.
You can line up over here if you want.
Okay. Thanks. Have you given thought to suing for violation of Nuremberg codes in regards to this vaccine stuff?
We have not sought to do that. We are going to keep our focus on the vaccine mandates, focus on the exemptions, because we think that employees who have a religious objection to this will get enough relief through that.
Do any of your lawsuits also cover public employees such as teachers, or are they only private businesses through those rules?
Well, we don't have any teacher clients at this point. We have right now, well, I guess we have some educators in one of our cases against I think it's Education Minnesota and Maine. So I think we've got those two covered, but we of course would be willing to bring lawsuits on behalf of teachers against public sector unions.
I'm specifically, I didn't say about the vaccines mandates.
No, I haven't seen anything like that come across my desk.
We'll get in touch with you. I've got a couple, at least 5.
Thank you.
Oh, is the Minneapolis charter provision drafted narrowly enough so that when they have this newly appointed public safety group working with the police department, Bikini, Levy, Armstrong, and the like, if they come out with a recommendation that so many mental health specialists and social workers be added to the police force, that they can't use that to equal the total number of police?
That's a great question. The answer is that under the charter, it requires members of the police force, and the definition of the police force includes sworn officers. So if they were to add members to a public safety department that could potentially be part of a police force, they would have to be sworn officers. So it couldn't just be a mental health professional, they'd have to be sworn.
A couple months ago, we did Midwest Swamp Watch here regarding election fraud. Is there a way to sue to get any forensic audits?
You know, we haven't looked into that, so I really couldn't answer that. But we haven't considered any post-election, post-2020 lawsuits. I will tell you that the Minnesota Voters Alliance is doing a lot of great work right now on cleaning up the rules and the statutes related to elections that I think will pay dividends in the future.
Great work. When Governor Walz undertook the emergency powers, he basically overruled the 609-735. How's that? Is that better?
Better.
So, Then the legislature voted unanimously to remove Wallace's emergency powers, so he couldn't do that. How is it that he can still enact the mask mandate when we have a state statute that says, if you do this, you could be arrested for a misdemeanor, or charged with a misdemeanor? And to go along with that, our fearless leader has enlisted OSHA to now create their wonderful rules to include things that discriminate against the unvaccinated. And how do we navigate that?
So, two parts to that. I think I'll go with the first one that I know more about, and that is Governor Walz's mask mandate. The mandate itself can't be reimposed unless the governor redeclares an emergency. But the way that the governor declared it the first time and the way he imposed it the first time is he just said, here it is. And the only thing that stops it at that point is either a legislature unit on both houses of the legislature terminating the emergency, or a lawsuit stopping it like ours. So the answer is it goes into effect until we do something about it. Whether it's right or wrong in the first place, it's still there. And as for OSHA, I'm not familiar with the particular issues related to OSHA and the application of vaccines. But the reality is that for large employers, again, under Title VII, there are still objector rights, which we think are really important, that every person who has an objection based on a religious belief to the vaccine should be looking into, because even if there's a state law that's requiring or something like that, state law is still subject to federal law on the same issues. And so Title VII would protect employees who have a religious objection or a similar type of objection from having to get the shot. And the employer has to provide a reasonable accommodation at that point to the employee, which may include mask wearing, by the way. But it would be that's what the courts would probably find to be a reasonable accommodation in that situation.
Right now I work as a nursing assistant, and I was told with the CMS mandate that I'm going to be out of a job within this week if my religious exemption doesn't get accepted. So what would you recommend doing if it doesn't get accepted and it's denied?
I think, wasn't the CMS mandate just struck down?
Today it was?
Yeah, I think this week was struck down, so I'd have to look again. I've been working on some other stuff and haven't had a chance to catch up on the news, but I think it's been struck down, so basically that would then...
James, it was struck down, but I believe most of those employers are still going to move forward with it.
Right, and so this is the issue, while the lawsuits against the government itself for imposing the mandate do one layer of mandate, the private employers, if they are private employers, can still impose a vaccine mandate as a condition of employment, but they must honor Title VII rights. They must honor Title VII rights if they're going to do that. So there still has to be exemptions available for people. So if there are no other, do you have one more here?
Well, I just had one goofy one.
I like
you. In a case where the judge was plaintiff in your lawsuit, and an investigator investigating in the other hand, what is that?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Everybody hear me?
Put a little closer.
Case where the judge was a plaintiff in the lawsuit, he's a judge in your case, is a private investigator for the Bar Association that was suing this fellow for unauthorized practice of law. There was a list of 7 areas. The case went to the state Supreme Court on a writ of mandamus, and in that particular writ, the judges came out and asked the fellow, before you start presenting your case, could we tell you something that we think we know that you don't know? The Supreme Court just met this morning to discuss the interesting parts of your case. And what we know and you don't know is that we agree with you. You cannot get a fair hearing in this trial. and I looked over at Donna and I winked. I thought we won. and he said, but. Now, but is an extremely interesting word. Because he says if you can't have a fair hearing, you've got to have one anyway. And we had to go through it.
Well, that doesn't sound like fun.
Yeah, you have one like that?
I've never run into that. You know, like I said, I might get ripped apart in a couple of hearings coming up here. Who knows? But thankfully, I never run through that. Well, if there are any other questions you all have, I will stick around for as long as people want to ask, and I'm happy to talk. You know, where you don't have to ask in front of everybody. So, thank you again for your time. Thank you, Mary.
So yeah, James Wader, you hear over there at the table, his business cards are there, and there's also a fall 2021 update. Nice little brochure back there, so you'll want to make sure you take that. We do have some other people here, you know. We've got child protection right back there. Make sure you stop by and hear the latest on them. There's a brochure. We've got, again, the LEA right there. With Janus sticking around. We have some free food items. We also have some free CDs and some other miscellaneous brochures back there that you can have. So feel free to take any and all of it. And before we close for the evening, I just want to say thank you so much for tonight's donations. We only survived because of donations, so thank you. We've been at this since 2009. And the fight continues, doesn't it? Would we like to hear from Senator Mark Craig? Do you have anything you'd like to say real quick?
Thanks, Mayor. State Senator Mark Craig, represent Senate District 32, Chisago and Sandy counties, and James, appreciate all the work. I don't think you guys realize how frustrating it is for everybody. James doing great work. Minnesota Voter Alliance, all those organizations need the financial support. They are part of the equation. If you look at, and many of you are frustrated, you come to the legislature and say, if you just do something. Well, we are not the enforcement arm. The legal process in many cases is the enforcement arm, in many cases to give us and to push these, the gross overreach of government into the court system. We have to do it every day. I can tell you from our perspective, the only way you can be more frustrated is to get elected. And so it's equally frustrating when you see the governor and the legislative or the new Democrats that are coming into this process. We are under assault in every facet, and James and the organization are doing everything they can to help battle that. But we are. And I tell everybody the difference we have between the new Democrat and the old Democrat that's entering our institution, only one of them can spell Constitution. I was elected in 2016, and the saddest part is really their disrespect for the institution. And we can change it. The reason we're all here, Mary does a great job, support her as well, is grassroots is where it's at. Local elections are where it's at. They took the power from us over the last 30 years. Fastest thing we can do is take back that local power. Every single elected office should be in our purview. Cities, counties, townships, school boards, every single one. County prosecutors, sheriffs, and alike. If you show up, we're seeing great examples. I think one, Mary, we should probably have a couple of people give some stories about how they change policy just by showing up. And if you show up and educate yourself in a local municipal government entity, and you become very dangerous to them. We've had stories all over the state with people resigning from school boards because parents showed up. I'm sorry, terrorists. Terrorists showed up. But we've seen people resign in city councils just because you showed up. If you show up and pick something that you're interested in, somebody will find something. Just show up, you bring a level of accountability. And that's how we take back the power. So I'm glad you guys are here and continue to show up and support, but get involved. Figure out a way how you're going to donate an hour or a dollar, and make sure that you step up and drag your neighbors along. If you could have the policies in the past, although I don't do politics. Politics is doing you. And how does it feel? So it's upon us. If it's not us now, who is it? And we have no future. So thank you.
An hour and a dollar. I like that. And I always say too, it's our duty to pass our heritage down. And if your kids don't listen, you just talk to somebody else's. You just never stop talking. Grab that neighborhood kid that needs to know the truth. It's up to us. Where else are we going to hear it? So I just want to say, Have a safe holiday season, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you January 6th.
You guys should like work in tandem, because I noticed that you were trying to zoom in both.